Alrighty, see if this works. Hello, welcome to the stream. Guess this is the 7th stream. Putzing along. My living situation has changed, so I hope the connection's alright. Anyway. Well, guess recap of what we did last time. We did back here, made this thing, made this thing, made this thing, and made that thing. Oh, hello, hi, I'm Mark. So, I guess we'll just be working on the back again. Oh, not much. Not much is up. Just got done moving. So we'll see how this turns out for me, but we'll see. So I guess this has to come down. First of all. First things first. And hello, Martin Man. Hello again. Nice to see you. We actually have an actual stream going for once. That's exciting. Glad you're all here. Alrighty. Just filling out some areas. Putzing along. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. So I do want to say, I was looking around, and I see that official Sketchup streams at the same exact time I do, coincidentally. So I might actually move it to Thursday, just so that's not conflicting. If that's the case, I'd do another one tomorrow. So, yeah, we're just putzing around. We're gonna fill out this back section. We're gonna fill out this right here. Put some supports. I think what has to happen here is a support panel here, because this will be a landing area. Secondary landing area right here. So people can land right here and they can hang out right here. Which then the corridor goes underneath here. Let's go underneath because I don't think if I was a person walking, I wouldn't want to walk on this and get smushed by that. So we'll go underneath it. And what else? And yeah, we'll put some dividing brackets here because we don't want people getting smushed here either. And yeah, what else? Oh, that's not a good angle. Has to happen. So it fills in with this one right there. That's good. Planner stuff here. Looks good. So we don't want this too high. Just high enough. Put this out. Something like that. It's gonna have to fill in with these support brackets. These are instanced on both sides, so we can't mess with them directly. Got to work with it here. Yes, indeed. Just got to fill in with it. Idea is all of these separated components, all this, things like that and things like that. Some of these have to be coalesced with each other like that, so they're saving on polygons, because a lot of this stuff is nested within each other, which isn't exactly optimal. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of refining there. So like, for example, places like this space would not have to exist because it fills in right there. But we'll figure that out when we're making it destructible, putting in the destructible components, figuring out exactly what gets blown off where. Like, could leave it so it can be blown off with this intact, physicalized. Puts along. Not sure where that line came from. Where exactly does that fill in? It's just right there. And that's the case, we don't need it. Because over here, you can simply fill in itself. Which doesn't need it, honestly. How long have I been using Sketchup? Well, a long time. If I don't beat around the bush too long, honestly. 11 years. I just kind of, this is what I started out with. I was like, wow, 3D, I've never done 3D before, and I never left. Can't kick the habit, honestly. Because I'm pretty sure if I had concept art, was working from a concept, I started using something like Blender or 3ds Max, it would go a lot faster. Not saying SketchUp is bad, just saying. It's nice. Can't do complicated things with it though. I mean, not... Well, I mean complicated things, yes, but complex things, not so much. If there's a difference. Yes. I do want to clarify that I have not always been good at SketchUp. I used to be pretty darn terrible, honestly. So yeah, 11 years, give or take a few months. Just gotta get warmed up here. I'm just making random stuff. Because what has to happen here, let's think about this for a second. Because things have to happen in the middle here. The actual jet engines are up here though. Not necessarily down there. So we got to go like that. And they can't be too bulky either. So yeah, 11 years, that's a long time. It was all by trial and error. Like back then we didn't have internet. We didn't have YouTube, we didn't have tutorials, we didn't have anything. I was just making random trash. Which, this is where this style came from. Where I'm able to do all this. Is where it's just literally random. Like I used to make, when I first started out, I was like, duh, look, I made a box. Duh, I made it. Duh. And I just make a mess. Just for fun. And then that just came a hobby. Like I just make messes for fun. And then it got to the point where I wanted to represent something. So then it started slowly becoming things like robotic stuff. And then the rest just slowly gravitated towards big things. Things too big for their own good. So this is a style that I like. It's just not efficient enough, I feel. So I would like to wean off of it a little bit. But this guy has been going so long that I really want him finished before I actually do that. So I want him finished before I start modeling like this. And start focusing on making instance components. Like for example, kit bashing. Make something fancy. And then just reuse it a lot. Make that. And then just instance it around. And just make very basic shapes. And then just put details instanced on top of it. Because all of this is all custom made. Like everything has to fill in different places and everything's all complicated. Not efficient. Like, you see a lot of mechs people make. They're usually just very simple. Like, it's basically just a box covered in greebles. Like, take a drink every time you see that. You see someone's mech and it's a box covered in greebles. Then you end up with limbs that kind of just boxes. There, that's how other people, that's how I should model, honestly. I'm not detrimenting on it, just saying that's more efficient. But then you don't get fine art. You just kind of get whatever. But do you really need fine art for a video game? Not really. You can get away with whatever you have, honestly. It's all a matter of how it's used. So yeah. So this will be one of the few times where I'll actually do stuff like this. Next on the list would be the simpler super destroyers. Like, this is the most complicated one. And then the actual giant guns, which I'm not sure if those will be customizable or not. That'd be pretty cool. Everyone has their customizable artilleries. And just to clarify, these artilleries are about yay big. They're called geocannons. Giant guns. There'll be a lot of those. They're a big part of the game. They're a faucet of it. And this is kind of its own thing. I think what we'll do. I think I know what has to happen here. 32. Fill this out. This has to become a separate component. Instance this off. Put this to -1. Make it mirrored. Just blocking this off. So honestly, this does not need to exist right here. This could just be put in here. Okay, I lied. Too many lies. Anyway. Now, how does this align? It needs to align with these ones. That's more like it. Always make sure everything's congruent. Like, for example, oh, since you have 11 years of experience, have any general tips for beginners? Aha! I was about to get into the complicated stuff. I guess, yeah, we'll do a tangent here. For beginners, I would say, I guess you won't be bothering with shortcuts. You just have to figure out which tools you'll be using. It all depends on what you plan on using it for. Most people use it for architecture, interior design, because that's kind of what it's designed for. When Google had it, they used it, it was meant for making buildings for their Google Earth. People can make buildings for Google Earth. It was kind of a public access thing. But then Google decided, well, we don't need that because of photogrammy. With satellites taking 3D pictures, they didn't need that anymore. So then Trimble took it up, and they just kind of didn't touch it much. They didn't do much with it. They just kind of repurposed it and said, hey, this is good for architecture, people. Make architecture with it. And everyone's like, okay. So its strengths are it's very precise and easy to work with. Like, you can make exact measurements. I'm not sure. Like, that bar on the bottom right, you can see that number moving around. Like, this is 3,000 centimeters. You can type in how long you want it, like 100 centimeters, and it makes it 100 centimeters. So it's very easy to use, very precise, and that's why people like it for architecture. And the reason I picked it up is because it was easy to use, and it was free. Because I was a little kid, I was like, ugh, I just want to make stuff. So yeah, it's very good to use in that regard. So I have everything on hotkeys. And yeah, that helps a lot. Like going over here and clicking the tools. I mean, as a beginner, yes, that's very, you have to do that. But for me, whenever I go crazy with it, I put everything on a hotkey and I memorize all the hotkeys. But for beginners, I wouldn't recommend that. So what I use always is the rectangle tool and the extrude tool. And that's 90% of what you'd really use mostly. All just extrusions. Extrusion tool is your friend. And if you make it go all the way out, you put it coplanar like that, it deletes the extra faces, so it's technically gone. And that's a cool thing about Sketchup. A lot of 3D programs, they don't do that. Like, they leave that behind usually. So that's another cool plus of Sketchup. So, yeah, rectangle tool, extrude tool. And then, next important tool is the move tool. You can just grab whatever, and you can move it around. That's very useful. It snaps to the alignment, as in your axes, the red, the green, and the blue. That's your right, left, up. It's always important to keep your models on that axis. And functioning on that axis. Because, for example, if I made this into a group, and just went in here, and turned this, now the axes are off. Like red and green and up is not good. So what happens is, then you're whenever you want to make a line in that this particular direction, it's like, well, you can't just do it automatically. I mean, you could, but only on that line. It's not going to pick up on that. But it does sometimes. You just can't rely on that though. So it's best always to keep it axis aligned. which you can use the rotate tool right here to make it aligned again. You could put a line like this, grab the rotate tool, get your alignment center, like for example here, click it here, move it over to where you want it. Now it's aligned again, which that helps. I always keep it aligned. And I skipped over component. So, the thing about this is everything is sticky for the SketchUp. If you put it here, it's gonna stick. Now it's stuck to it. Geometry is sticky in SketchUp. Like if you tried to make a circle on this thing and tried to move the circle, it's not budging. It doesn't want to move away from that. If things touch each other, they stick to each other. So, to get around that, you group components. Like for example, if you double click, you select all of this. Actually no, double click makes it so you select the face and the connected edges. Triple click is what connects everything that's connected. For example, if I put it here, they're together now. So, if you group them, now they won't be sticky anymore. So you can put it on stuff, they won't follow each other, they're their own thing now. Now there's two types of groupings. There's regular groups, and there's components. Regular groups are just if you want to make it so they don't stick to anything. And that's basically it. Like you could copy this, mess with this group here, and nothing else happens to the other one. Or the different. But if you took this and turned it into a component, now it's instanced. Which means if you copy and paste it, now everything you do on this component happens to the other one. Which you can convert it into its own unique component as well. For example, I just did. You can't really see the roll down bar because I don't have that enabled, but yeah. You can make it unique to each other. And that helps a lot. Because the thing is, you can just make a ton of instances. And everything you do to that instance is now happening to all the instances. So that's very useful for complicated objects. But yeah, and sometimes SketchUp is inconsistent. Like right here, it's like it didn't delete that face. So sometimes you have to go in with the eraser tool and clean that up. And there's a lot of nuances, honestly. If I went into all the nuances, it would take a long time. A lot of times you'll be working with tiny itty bitty mistakes, like what if I didn't do this all the way? And you're wondering why isn't this functioning properly? It's because you've got a little tiny thing right there. So that's one of the bad things about SketchUp. Is things can get tiny and minuscule, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that. How am I supposed to know? And you just have to learn it from experience. All the ins and outs of it. If I move that there, that means this is slightly off kilter like this, but you just can't see it. So if I do this, it won't want to. It's like, I can't extrude it anymore. It doesn't want to. So what you can do with that, hold down Control, or just push Control once, and now it'll just do it whatever you feel like it. It's not going to be good though because you have itty bitty mistakes there. So yeah, it's tough. I'm gonna level with you. It's pretty tough when you're starting out because a lot of little tiny things add up, things that you can't see. So that's the big problem with SketchUp. You have to be very precise. That's the cost of being precise in SketchUp. With precision, everything's very precise, as you just can't make mistakes, or else you will pay for it. So yeah, that's bad. But to fix something like this, you can delete this and see, oh, okay, you can kind of deduce what's going on here. So you can grab this, put it on the green axis, and to constrain it to axes, you use your arrow keys. Like, if I press the right arrow key, it can go on the red axis, left arrow key is green axis, up is blue axis. So I figured out, I know that it has to be aligned on the green axis. So you can just adhere it to here. When you delete this, it should be fine. Now it can extrude and all that good stuff. And one more thing before I go do other stuff is if you extrude it, sometimes it'll be good, like it deleted all the interior stuff as it should. But For example, if I control extruded, that means it's going to leave a face behind, because it just extruded no matter what and didn't delete the original face. So you end up with interior components like this. With a game engine, you wouldn't want that, because that's superfluous geometry. Or for example, you had a box that you intersected with this. Intersect faces. Suddenly you got interior stuff that does not help. And what I'm doing is I'm hiding faces with a hotkey. Like you can right click and hide with a hotkey. That's what I've been doing. That helps a lot. You end up with this stuff, you have to get rid of that before you put it into game engines. So there's a lot of cleaning up you have to do. Get rid of that. Get rid of these. And everything is n-gons. It converts it into triangles when you import it. Which people say, that's all messy and stuff. True, but I don't care. No one cares what the triangles look like. They only care what the model looks like in-game. So yeah. That's all that. One more thing I would recommend. Can't remember what I was. What was that thing I would recommend? Oh, it's changing up your mouse stream. Like by default, right click opens up a menu, and then you can choose stuff to happen. And middle click is your orbit, as in your tool right here that moves the camera around, which I have inverted. I have it so the right click is what orbits, and the middle click is what makes your options show up, which they don't show up here because that's not enabled. So yeah, I would invert that because middle clicking and rotating all the time is just not convenient. Use the right mouse button. So yeah, that's a few basics. There's a lot more nuances to it, honestly. And yeah, it's pretty hard to get into because there's so many little itty bitty tidbits you didn't know. It's like, how could I have predicted that? You can't. And the documentation doesn't help a whole lot either. So yeah, 10 years is how long it took to actually get it good. Easy to learn, hard to master. So yeah. Anyway, let's see. I want to keep my cylinders aligned. Like for example, aesthetics. Like there's a congruency here that has to be mirrored on top. So it has to be right here. Would anything be right there? Highly unlikely. We'll just roll with it. So yeah, I mean honestly, if I were to recommend a 3D program to someone, I would say, well, SketchUp's good just to start out with 3D, but I wouldn't stick with it. Like, if I could go back in time, I would learn something else, like 3ds Max or Blender. Because SketchUp's kind of a dead end. You're stuck, once you learn it, you're stuck with it. It's definitely not a bad program. It's just not meant for this kind of stuff. But then again, it's all in the user, not the program. You can use MS Paint, make stuff with it. If you're really good with MS Paint, you can make stuff that's good. Oh, you're welcome. I didn't explain everything, but that's a start. Yeah. So yeah, it takes a while. It's not the big things, it's the little things. Like, these tools are easy to understand. It's easy to understand this is a rectangle. This is the line tool. This is the googly line tool. Those are easy to understand. It's just the nuances of sticky geometry, tiny itty bitty nonsense that gets on people's nerves. Hard to learn. Let's see. We're not making very fast progress here. Let's see, how can we speed this up? I know what we need. And yeah, I wish Sketchup had better official documentation. I mean, there's stuff around. It's just they don't explain the nuances. They explain the big stuff, not the little stuff. It's the little stuff that makes things frustrating. Like, they give practical examples, but there's no compendium of resources what to do in certain situations. And if there are, it would be really exhaustive, because there's a lot of different nuances to it. Like, you'll see me do random little things when little inconsistencies pop up, and there's just so many ways to go about it. I guess maybe that's the reason why they don't make official documentation, because there's no right or wrong way to do a lot of stuff. Which I disagree with, but maybe that's what they think. Like, for example, that's the wrong way to do that. If you're gonna do that, you do this. You don't split it up beforehand. And then you do this stuff. And by, okay, I was just thinking, what do I mean by nuances? It was just a little, like, how do I recreate one? Yeah, like right here. Like, when it does that, delete it. Or for example, yeah, it's just hard. Like, it makes sense until things don't make sense. So I can't recreate it offhand. Just little things. Like where your geometry is messed up. Like, how do you fix that? Okay, let's see. What has to happen here is let's think about this. I get it. I know what we need. This goes here. Close. Oh, another tip I have is careful selecting things. Because, for example, if I went like this, trying to select these faces, everything behind it gets selected as well. So the way I do it is I'm very careful just to do like this. So everything over there is much less likely to do that. But if I have a lot of geometry over here, I'm not going to risk that. I'm going to select it from the other side like this. So, and for selecting, down right selects just whatever's inside the box. Up left is what selects what's ever touching the box. So that's useful for selecting a lot of stuff, and this is for selecting individual tiny things. Which you have to be careful not to select everything. And always keep your angles congruent. That's just a personal tip. That has nothing to do with SketchUp, that's just aesthetics. And that's gonna make some weird geometry. Maybe we should not do that. If you're putting it into a game engine, it's good to think about how the geometry could get messed up. Like, you don't want things touching spheres all the time. I mean, cylinders. But yeah, and SketchUp's an n-gon program. Like, you're not working with triangles. Everything else you're working with triangles or quads or whatever. So this one, it splits it up when you export it, which can be messy at times, but it doesn't matter. So everything here is triangles. It's just pretending that they aren't. Like, everything is triangle. But everything is smooth in a way that doesn't look like triangle. You can select and all that stuff. So if you think about it that way, that's how you model a lot of stuff. Like, for example, close this shape off. You think about it with triangles. You say, okay, this makes a triangle here, and that makes a triangle there. Now we got a bunch of triangles. And that's how you fill out a bunch of shapes. So yeah, little things like that. And what else? Okay, so what we need is a curve here. Curve. I mean, there's Bezier or Bezier or whatever that is, but I don't mess with that stuff. I'm not a smooth polygon person. Organic modeling. I'm an inorganic all the way. Yeah, and SketchUp's not the one you want to be using for organic modeling. If you have smooth shapes, use something else, like ZBrush. This has to be congruent. Cannot be intersecting. Get out of here. Yeah. Like that. Aesthetics. I was about to make a pun there, but I'd no thanks. Because I mean, yeah. Let's see. Sometimes you can break the mold. Like there's nothing here that it can go off of, so any angle's good. So we're gonna need a few lines here. Yeah, and if you put the rectangle on a particular line, it'll follow that angle. If you put it here, floating is gonna follow the default stuff. Sometimes you want, usually you don't. And a lot of times you can, okay, and you can split things in half. Like, if you go on this line, you look for the halfway point, it picks it out for you. This is the midpoint. If you want things to be congruent, you can just keep splitting things by the midpoint. That's even faster with the rectangle tool. And you can make things all the same. And if you type in a number, it'll extrude it the amount. Like, for example, it says 600 down there. If I type in 100, it stays there. 100 centimeters right here. But I don't do that kind of stuff. That's too precise for me. I don't do that stuff. Just arbitrary. Because people don't care sometimes. Like, doesn't matter in the long run if this one is slightly longer than that one. Sketchup is precise, but you don't have to be precise to get what you want. Like, I see a lot of times people will be modeling in SketchUp and they're so minute. Like, I need it to be exactly this length. It has to be exactly this length over here. It has to be very... And then they look at it like, I'm trying to get it so it's on this one. So I'm going to draw this out and all that stuff. It's like, doesn't matter. You just go boop, boop, done. Doesn't have to be... Don't have to mess with it. So yeah, extrude tool is your friend. Just extrude it out and then mess with it. Don't try and make it perfect. Like, go like this, then go like this, and go like this, and go like this. And then extrude it. Just go boop. Okay, I'm lying. I'm an idiot. Sometimes you do have to do that. Duh, stupid. But yeah, I mean, no need to be precise. It's art. It's not mechanical engineering. Unless you are doing mechanical engineering, then yes, be precise. So let's see what has to happen is this. So here's another tool I use a lot. It's called the offset tool. It's right here. You can use it to make an inscribing some of these angles here. Like, for example, you need this smaller, inset this, which is pretty fancy. Like, it'll automatically cull these extra corners here. For example, it makes it smaller like that. So what you can do is you can use it on faces, that's what it does, but you can also use it on edges. See this edge right here? You can use it on this edge and it makes it so it follows that actual curve. Makes it congruent with the other one, make it smaller and all that stuff. So you can use it right here. So because of what we're doing here, put it there. Let's make it so it follows this. I think that's what we want. I'm not sure. Yeah, another thing. Blue is inverted faces. That means if you import it into something, it will not show up. So you have to reverse the faces so they're white, because these are one-sided geometry. which you can make it two-sided in the engine, but it's best just to keep it one-sided, just to save draw call stuff. Anyway, that looks fine. And see, and the thing is, it smooths out these curves. Like, you don't see lines here, but in reality, there are lines there. Forgot the hotkey for that, but yeah, there's supposed to be lines there. Show hidden geometry. Let's see. Can't seem to find it. Oh, here we go. Like that. These are the lines that are hidden. Like, they exist, but they're smoothed out. Like, all these curves here that have all these lines. So, whenever I'm working with it, I just keep them off. And then I can just guess exactly where they are. Like, you can see that it kind of snaps to them. So sometimes I'll divvy them out so I can work with them. So I can extrude it out like that. Because you can't do it automatically. It's like, I can't do that on smooth surfaces. Which, there are plugins for that. Let me save first. Always save before you use plugins. Like, for example, this Fredo's joint push and pull. You can actually push and pull smooth surfaces. Which is not a beginner thing. I wouldn't do that. You don't really need it a lot of times, but that's a thought. The reason I brought that up is because there are smooth things here, like that and like that I do not want because I don't need them anymore. So what you can do is just do that and delete them, you're good. That's it. And I don't like sharp edges like that. There we go. There you go. This should come up some. Which means this has to go down some. And for example, it doesn't like to push and pull past certain things. Like, it doesn't want to do this right now because there's this curved surface here. It's like, I can't extrude right here and I don't like it. So what you can do, press Control and force it to extrude. I am the captain now. But the thing is, you have to be careful because that will leave behind a face. This line right here is a face on the interior, which if you don't care about polys, that's fine, but I do care about polys, so gone. Close this off, delete that. So yeah, what we need. Oh yeah, we had to get this down some, yeah. Good. I always like things congruent. Aesthetics. And what else? What else? What else? I think we can get this out more. And you can make pseudo smooth surfaces like this. I just leave it alone, but you can hold down. Okay, you use the eraser tool. That usually just deletes faces, but there's two other options to it. If you hold down Control, it smooths out faces, so they make smooth. Like, you can do this to everything basically. Smooth, horrific, undo. Another one is Shift. You hold down Shift and it hides faces or stuff. Like, it's not smooth; it's just hidden. Like, if I hide all these things, they're hidden. But then if you unhide everything, they'll become visible again. So that's only very edge cases that you would want to do that. Most of the time you're going to smooth them out. Hardly different sometimes. Yeah, and the thing is, I don't really bother with that kind of stuff. Like, I don't bother unsmoothing these or smoothing them. Like, for example, these aren't smooth. Because when I import them, that info is kind of hard to import. Like, it imports, but not the way you want it to. So I just use the smoothing groups inside the actual 3D software that I'm importing into. But if you're just using SketchUp for rendering, then yeah, it does matter. Just smooth that stuff out. So yes. And sometimes it smooths them automatically. Like right here, it smooths that, and you can't mess with it. So you don't want that. And to bring them back, I usually just do that. I'm pretty sure there's a hotkey for that, to unsmooth stuff. I think it's Control Shift. Yeah, Control Shift to bring it back. Control smooths, Shift Control unsmooths. And sometimes you do have to do that. So said we weren't gonna do that, but I guess we don't have a choice. This has to come down. This has to go. Okay. Okay. So these have to filter into here. These are off kilter. Why are they off kilter? I see. We'll roll with it. Another thing with the control pull is that not leaving behind that face is actually beneficial sometimes. Like sometimes you want to divvy this off, and normally you'd have to use a square and then do that. But if you use control, do this, it leaves behind for you. So you can do it automatically. Problem is it will leave behind that face. So keep that in mind. Has to happen here. These cannot go out too far. What has to happen is this gets instanced. Oh, another thing, when you move, as you press Control, it copies what you're moving. If you use the arrow keys to constrain it, you can put it where you want. Something like that. Not too bulky. Because if that's the case, then we have to bulk this up. Which could we? Should we? We could. Almost makes more sense. Almost is the key word. We'll think about that. Here's another one, a plugin I like to use, round corner. Like you just select an edge, pull this up, and then boom, round, beveled. Which I only use it for the straight edge stuff. Just like that. Because I'm a hard surface enthusiast. Which, if you were into that kind of thing and you need your model to be smooth, that helps a lot. Like, for example, take this, just grab the whole thing, do the round corner, and wha-bam! It is now rounded off. Try not to work with that, though, because if you do stuff like this, you're stuck with all this stuff. Good luck goofing with that. Not easy to work with. But yeah, it's good. Let's see. Where's my music? Yeah, go put it there, put it there. Put this there. And Control, select to select more things, Shift to unselect. Toggle. Control Shift to take away from selection. And try not to move things in a haphazard way, because then you end up with messes. Let's see, it needs... It's pretty close. There's going to be a lot of hole filling with this. Like for over here. A lot of hole filling. Now, where could this go? I get it, I get it. It needs to go here. Because this right here is the corridor itself. How much leeway would we have? Plenty. So we're going to have to make some internal geometry there. This has to go here. Sometimes you have to manually close it from outside. You can't just double click out of it. Doing this all the manual way. There are much faster ways to do this. There we go. And sometimes you have to hide similar components so you can get an idea of where it is cross-section wise. And sometimes you don't need all this internal geometry, because these are instance components. They will be connected to each other. You don't need these extra faces. Get out of here. What a mess. Yeah, whenever you model haphazardly like this, you will end up with messes. It's just the way it rolls. As long as you clean them up. Anyway, this goes over here. And whenever you have to do this, you intersect faces with context with the rollout menu, which you cannot see because I don't have that enabled. And they will emerge right here. Up and out. Wrong answer. Be careful what you select. You don't want to select stuff you don't want. There. Now how tall is this? 120 centimeters. That won't do. It's gonna have to be at least 180. This has to come up some. For example, what we will do is put a face on this. Here, here, and here. Copy it over. Now we can mess with this geometry without breaking anything. Select, select, select. Did I say not break anything? I meant break everything. We can work with that. Looks good to me. Whenever you end up with stuff like this, it's better just to erase this and fix it. Good. Okay, so it's, and if you're forced to select things with things behind it, select it, go like this, deselect over here randomly. You shouldn't have anything else with it. Good. So now there's a doorway here. Let's see. This has to come out. This cannot be left alone. How tall? Yes. Excuse me. Excuse me, I can't reach my silverware. There. And then you end up with a mess like this. So it's best to intersect faces and clean it up. Doesn't take too long. As long as you're precise with your movements. Good. Now, keep these together. Now, since this is a staging area, put some and here's another tool that you will use a lot, the follow me tool. It grabs your input and it follows the line, kind of like a loft tool. You'll be using that a lot. Now here's the problem. This is not bilateral, which it should honestly be bilateral. Because this is just a collection of components at this rate. Like for example, even this one's just its own thing. So, we shall divide this out so it can be bilateral. The way to do that is grab everything. Make sure it's all disconnected. Looks good to me. Then you component, turn it into a component. So now it's not sticky. And what we're going to do with this one and make it bilateral. So to do that, normally you could just like put a plane here and intersect faces. But what I have is a plugin. Say before you use plugins. It's from the, what do you call it? Artisan. I don't think you have to pay for this one, I think. Unfortunately. But yeah, Artisan. What it does is have a knife thing that when you do this, well, bam, everything is now split. Very nice. So we'll make the camera parallel projection. It makes it so it's not perspective. Because if you do it with perspective, it's going to cut in a weird way. Parallel projection. Align it the way it should be. Which on the top left you'll see it says right. So then we'll just go here and say right. So now we will cut it like so. Delete this. End up with this. Perspective again. Copy, paste in place. Scale it. Type in -1. It is now mirrored. So everything I do here will happen there. Which for this, I was about to do the loft tool around here, but that's dumb. We'll do this instead. Do the offset tool. Yeah, with Sketchup, a lot of times you do something and then after you do it, you figure out, wait, I could have done it a lot easier the other way. Just the way it goes, because a lot of times you just don't know what you want at the time. And this is like a landing area, so we're gonna have to be a little bit more room. There's just no good places to land on this thing. If you land here, you risk flying too low and then getting hit by... Let me think. Actually, no, you would not be hit by that, because you wouldn't be landing on it if the gun is firing. Like, this is just an outlet for the gun itself. Like, you're not going to be trying to landing on this thing while it's firing. So yeah, it's a perfectly fine place to land. You have to be very careful back here, because you'll be able to land here as well. But then these are throwing out air. Don't fly too close to that. Don't drive too close to this. Get a nice flip there. But that'll be fun. That'll be pretty fun, like, say someone's driving this, I'm in my own little tank, and be like, okay, hit the gas. Get park up right behind it, then he hits the gas, and woohoo! Go for a little roll. That'd be fun. Let's see. So this is a staging area, so there should be lockers, things to put your stuff. Emergency systems, because this is also the emergency takeoff point. Which I guess, why would they need one? Because the thing is, the gravity is low enough that they could just jump off the side. They'd be totally fine. 100 meters, they're fine. They could handle terminal velocity falls. Very low gravity. Let's see. I mean, it may be better just to instance this off. Like, make a very basic setup for it. And then just put in the stuff later. So, like all the lockers and stuff, because there'll be actual instanced components in the game. So you don't need all the fancy geometry here. You can put it somewhere else. Yeah, we'll leave those alone. How tall is this? 190 centimeters. Is that tall enough? Where's our crash test dummy? Here, dummy man. Oh, there's something. Okay, here's another thing. If you hold down control while using the orbit tool, you do crazy stuff. The world is upside down. So yeah, hold down control to fix that. You're good. Where'd my crash test dummy go? Okay. Mr. Dummy Man, give us a measurement. Looks good to me. As long as you don't run in too fast, you might hit your head on that. Speaking of which, might as well fix it. Can't have people hitting their head. Because that would be kind of annoying. I'm trying to run in here and then just bonk. Easy cheesy. So we have extra clearance. Now here's the elephant in the room. Do we continue on this component or this component? Suppose this one. Oh, there is an edge case. For example, if you extrude this out, there's a line here. It won't delete that off. You'd be like, So you have to do that manually. Well, we'll get to that. On that portion sometime. It's not on the list of things. Well, it is 3:12 where I'm at. I have some prior engagements, so I guess we'll cut it short. 1 hour is the minimum anyway. So, yeah, I was thinking, I saw official Sketchup does their stream at exactly the same time, almost exactly 1 hour off, that as I do, which is unfortunate. So I'm thinking I will do this every Thursday at 2 p.m. If anyone has objections, let me know. If anyone if anyone even is watching. 3. Thanks for sticking around. So yeah, every Thursday. So I will make another one tomorrow. And then from now on it'll be Thursday. So yeah. Guess that'll do. We made this. We made that, I guess. Some stuff. It'll come along. Still a ton to do. Need to pick up the pace. Because we still have the main cannon to do. That's quite a big thing. It'll be like this, kind of. This will be asymmetrical. And it will be tilted up like this at default form. So that will be how big the main cannon actually is. That's why it's called the Burden Beast. Alright, yep. You're welcome, Martin Man. And I will do this tomorrow. So as to not cheat. Because I really need to get this going faster. I mean, honestly I don't. But I just feel like it should. Now that I have my stuff organized. Anyway. Thanks everybody for watching. See you tomorrow, actually. And see you later. Good luck on your endeavors. And I hope all you people using Sketchup can glean something out of this. Make your own models and make them fantastic. And toodaloo.